Hello and welcome to another edition of Chill with Kaiju Kim. I'm Kaiju Kim. Hope you're all doing well on this lovely afternoon, evening, whatever time it is for you. Do you like collecting toys? Of course you do. Chances are a lot of you avid collectors out there have a lot of Godzilla figures and other kaiju figures, model kits, X-Plots, all that fun stuff. But I wanted to make you guys aware, if you're not aware already, of this little toy company called Resurrection Toys. This company makes and sells unique toys which can be found in their shop, which is linked down below in the description, and has been featured on Monster Island Buddies. And here tonight to tell us all about it is co-founder of Resurrection Toys, Grindhead Jim. Woohoo!
Thanks for having me, Kim. Really appreciate this. Yeah, the Monster Island Buddies thing, we were kind of taken by surprise. So the way all this kind of started, it kind of fell into my lap, where my Mexican partners, Rolo and Marcos, they have been making toys in Mexico of the bootleg variety for many years, and Rolo is terminally ill with cancer. And after I met him, found this out, we did some fundraising for him. And after seeing the results of that, he came to me and said, "Look, I don't know when it's going to happen, but someday I'm not going to be able to manage these toys. And there's something we have coming out that I really want someone to take attention of and make it an international product. And I think you're the guy to do it." I said, "You sure? I love toys and I've got an okay business acumen, but I've never done this before." He says, "No, I think you'll be fine." And so we start to ramp up the ideas. We had just named the company. We hadn't built a website yet, no social media presence. We were slowly climbing the hill. And we had talked about taking the existing catalog of toys and selling them. And then one Saturday morning, I'm in my bathrobe sitting at this very desk, and I get a message from somebody. It's like, "Hey, man, someone is reviewing those toys that Rolo was talking about on Monster Island Buddies." I'm like, "What?" And at first, I thought someone had bootlegged the bootleg, and then he just kind of had them. I didn't know what to think. I was like, "What's going on?" And then every comment is, "Where can I get these?" And I find out that he did get them mailed by Marcus, our designer. And I go, "Why didn't you tell me?" Turns out Marcus didn't know Monster Island Buddies from Adam. He didn't realize how big of a following he has. And so we were caught with our proverbial pants down. And so we went from no web presence, no social media, no store, to having all of that in less than 36 hours. And that was beginning of September. So I'm glad you mentioned the MIB thing right away, because that's an integral part of where this all came from.
Awesome. And we're going to get a little bit more into that history in a little bit. But first off, we need to say hello to the people we have in the chat tonight. We got Gojira851. Good evening. Jane Meyer. Hello, hello. And Michael Hamilton. What's up? Alrighty. So before we continue with our Resurrection Toys discussion, I have to ask you the three questions that I always ask all my guests who come on to here. And those three questions are: how did you get into Godzilla? What's your favorite Godzilla film? And what is your favorite non-Godzilla kaiju film?
Okay. So how did I get into Godzilla? The mileage may vary depending, because I don't know which came first, chicken or the egg kind of a thing. I don't remember if I was watching the Godzilla Hanna-Barbera cartoon first on TV, or if I had seen a film on like a creature feature. I think it was the creature feature thing, because I have distinct memories of watching some of the older 50s and 60s stuff on television. And I don't know what it was. The character just spoke to me. There was something about a big giant lizard wreaking havoc and being a good guy, that like the duality and the complexity of the character really spoke to me, and it just stuck. It just stuck with me, and uh, I've just never been able to not like the guy. Um, the only Godzilla film that I don't like is one that I would say is not a Godzilla film. That giant iguana film we got in 1998. Okay, that's a giant iguana. That is not Godzilla. I don't care what is on the poster. Okay. Beyond that, I find something to like in pretty much every other Godzilla film. But my favorite, which is it's a tough decision. You know, most people think it's Final Wars because that's my favorite Godzilla design. However, my actual favorite Godzilla film is Godzilla 1984 or Godzilla Returns. Um, and in some releases, it's known as Godzilla 85, I believe. But I remember distinctly where we were staying at the time in 85 was the Bay Area of Virginia, like Norfolk, Chesapeake Bay, Newport News area. And my dad was saying that maybe we'd be able to go down to the Coliseum to watch the premiere of that film. They were having a big to do at this big event, you know, kind of a thing. I was like, oh, it's going to be great. And then a hurricane hits.
Oh no.
And they didn't reschedule the event, so I didn't get to go. And I remember my memories of the hurricane were, wow, this is scary, but also, why am I not getting to see Godzilla 1985? And then like a year or two later, I don't remember which it was, um, we went to see Top Gun in the theater, and I come home to find Godzilla 85 on the television. It's like it's just starting. I was like, oh, and it was almost like a twofer because it was my birthday present to go to this movie. So two of the most influential and memorable films for me in my childhood, I kind of got as a 1-2 punch situation. The third question was, what's my most favorite non-Godzilla kaiju? Right?
Yes.
Ah, the film.
Hmm.
Interesting. Hmm. It's a very good question because I don't seek out a lot of the non-Godzilla stuff. And I think it would be cheating to say Madra because that's tied in with Godzilla, which is a Toho product. So if I was allowed that, I would probably say Madra. But since it's not, um, I think I'd have to go with. You know what? The latest round of Gamera movies are pretty good. The latest
Mm.
round of Gamera movies pretty good. Brought them back from the brink. Who doesn't like a good flying turtle? You know,
Yeah, flying turtles are awesome.
true
All
story.
right. True story indeed. All right. So let's get back to why we're here tonight, and that is
Sure.
Resurrection Toys. Now you did, I think you touched on a little bit how about how it gets started, but like when and
Hmm.
how did all of this get started?
Yeah. So to embellish, not embellish, but to elaborate a bit more on what I was saying before, the toy line that we're going to be working on and releasing next year is a licensed version of the Neverending Story. We're seeking to do 3 3/4 inch and 4 inch scale stuff. We started working on that, and that's something we have like in targeted for next year. So we were just like, all right, let's get a business plan together. Let's do the website and all this. Then the Monster Island Buddies thing happens, and I said, well, I guess we can hopefully make some capital doing this. It can't hurt, so we put it up, and it's been a whirlwind ever since. The last 2 months have been a very long year for us. It's been kind of crazy because no one has ever done what we're doing, which is doing an international export willingly of Mexican bootleg toys. No one does that, and we figured out very quickly why no one does it. There's a lot that goes into that sort of a thing, and making sure that things actually make it through customs and that you can charge a fair amount for shipping and not also lose your behind on it. Um, and it's been difficult, but it really started with the original idea being, let's do this never ending story toys thing. Maybe also sell some stuff from our back catalog. MIB video hits, kicks us into high gear, and now we're here.
Awesome. So what else makes your company unique? What would you say?
I would say that being very proud of it. We have everything is in house. We work with a very small crew. It's me, Rollo, who does the logistics, and then Marcos, who does all the sculpting, and also deals with the manufacturing partners that we have. We have a handful of manufacturing partners in Mexico. It's all a handshake deal. They're not these long contracts, and you're not having to have big, long turnaround times. We order something, we can usually have the base figures in hand in a matter of a couple days. And then it's a matter of taking the custom ones, getting those painted and so forth. But it's all done by hand by either Marcos himself or someone who he is trained to paint the stuff. So I think the difference would be really keeping that kind of personal, custom, artisan toy vibe without charging absolutely insane prices for those toys. And on top of that, with the level of desired craftsmanship, we also have durability with these toys. They're meant to be played with, so we're not giving people just this model or whatever. I think it's a unique combination of factors where you get the craftsmanship, but you get something you can actually play with, and we encourage that. So I think that's the biggest thing, aside from the uniqueness of exporting Mexican toys, which no one really does.
Awesome, awesome. So let's take a look at some of these toys that you have here on your shop. So
Sure.
walk us through the creative process. Like, how exactly do these toys get made?
There's really kind of two impetus points for these. It's either someone gets an idea and it just sparks and they run with it. That would be in the case of any of the kaiju inspired stuff. It was just something that Marcos really wanted to do. Versus with, like, say, the Lucha Libre figures, um, they were approached by a wrestling promotion there outside of Mexico City, and then each of those figures were actually approved one by the wrestlers that they represent. So sometimes it's a contract, someone else has the idea, Marcos then sculpts it, gets it approved, and it goes out, or it's something he's just really keen to create on his own, and then he sees if there's a market for it, and then they kind of put it out. Like we have a special edition of the Predacon that definitely does not look like anyone that plays bass guitar in a rock band. Under no circumstances should it be compared to that individual that it does not look like at all. But he was gearing up for Halloween and Day of the Dead, and he thought, well, what if Predacon had a Halloween outfit? What would he dress like? And he just decided to go that way. I fell in love with it, and he says, "Do you think anybody would buy it?" I says, "Yeah, there are people that would love that look for various reasons." So I said, give me some pictures. We'll throw it up." And sure enough, people are snatching it up. So I'm proud of that. And then you look at like the Xenomech, which is bottom there. That one was something that was a contract. One of the manufacturing partners asked him, like, "Hey, could you?" Someone asked me if you could make something like this as a crossover of the Xenomorph and Iron Man. And he said, "Sure." So we did this. And anytime he's doing contract work, he tends not to tell us what he's doing because he always assumes we're not going to be interested. And then during one of our business meetings, he just pulls these pictures out and says, "Do you think people would want this?" And I said, "Yeah, this is pretty cool." And the clincher for me is the next picture where the helmet comes up. And I know it's a very simple thing to do, but you never see the armor where the mask comes off. You have alternate heads or something. So just these little tiny touches. And I'm always taken aback with the creative process that he does have. Then where it's somewhere in the middle is the Kraken that we're currently working on. And that is something that one of my close friends that's a Patreon for my personal YouTube channel, he just kind of said, "Hey man, have you given any thought to maybe doing one? Because they're hard to get a hold of in the right scale and they fall apart and this and that." And I said, "You know what? That's a great idea." Brought it to them. They loved it. And we've been working on it ever since. And from last I heard, the sculpt should be complete by end of this coming week. But
Ooh.
inside the product listing, there's some everything we have so far. I've seen the completed head, which is a little bit more refined than what you see in the gallery here. I've also seen the arms, and the initial hands, which needs some refinement. Um, but the biggest thing right now is working on the bottom end and making sure that he actually can balance on a table, because he's so big. He's going to be, a solid 15 to 16 inches tall
Oh,
when
wow.
all is said and done, not counting the tail. So it's going to be kind of a really insanely huge thing. It's the first one that we all collaborated on together. We all had creative input on this thing. So I'm really excited with that. And every time he gets inspired, Marcus goes that much further. You see this spark in his eyes. We got an approved line art for the box art, showed it to him, and he said, "Ooh, this gives me ideas." So the box art is now influencing the toy, whereas the toy sculpt had already inspired the artwork, and it's this interesting cycle. I really enjoy the creative process, and in this, it's like it's when I was a child, I always wanted to be able to make my own toys, or I would customize toys and mix and match stuff. So this is kind of like being let loose as a child in like a toy store or a design shop. I love it.
That is awesome. What are some of your favorite toys that you have here?
I would say that my personal favorite will always be the Xenozilla. If for no other reason than that's the conversation piece that people tend to have. We recently did a convention, Retropalooza, here in Texas, and people would see that from like across the center and just come running towards like what is that? And it would just be this unique discussion piece. And there's so many different color variants. There's almost no color that you can throw on that sculpt and it not look great, because we've tried a few of them. And I said, let's try to make them look as gaudy as possible. And I've seen some like day glow green that I thought would be horrid, but with a nice black wash over top, it looks great. Um, I think he's the most versatile of the toys we currently have in terms of, again, color palette. Universally, something that most people can recognize exactly what it's supposed to be. You don't have to explain it to anybody. Sometimes with the Predacon, they won't see it right away. They won't understand exactly what they're looking at until they really stare at it for a minute. And whereas with the Xenozilla, you don't really have that problem. So I'd say that's my favorite, but I think that will be quickly overtaken by the Kraken once he's produced.
Awesome. These are really, really creative. I love what you've done here. What you and your team have done. And this one's actually one of my favorites because um I'm not huge on Spider-Man, but my nephew is. But I just thought this was really cool because I like the colors. Venom Saurus.
Venomsaurus, yeah.
Yeah.
Because we basically, you have to make sure that you're naming these things something that where people can understand what you're going for. I wanted to go with something more generic. I would have said like Symbiote Saurus, but then we have both, so we had to do something um, it's very different. And this was something again that they had been producing long before we decided to go down this road. So to be able to carry these really creative ideas to people all over the world, we've got customers in Japan, Hong Kong, the UK, Canada, all over the US, Guatemala. Um, we've hit almost every corner of the world so far. And it's really cool to be able to bring toys like these to people that never had a chance to get these before. So just the endeavor of being able to spread that love to people is probably by far the most rewarding part of this for me.
That is amazing. So I see you have a lot of Alien and Predator inspirations there, and of course a little bit of
Yeah.
Spider-Man, like we were talking about. Um, are there any other franchises that you would like to take inspiration from while creating toys in the future?
There definitely are a lot of places we could cull from. Um, so many, in fact, it's difficult to make a decision on where we want to go. One of the things we're running into is that as we move towards the Kraken, we realize an opportunity to take the buck of that toy. For those that aren't familiar, the buck is like the core torso kind of basis for a sculpt. And we could, with a few tweaks, turn that into a Cthulhu from H.P. Lovecraft. And so we're definitely going along with that. And that leads into, we're really leaning heavily into folklore and myths of the past. So there's a lot of Mexican mythology and certain kinds of dragons that we're going to be exploring, as well as European kaiju monsters and stuff like that. So although these aren't necessarily franchises, they certainly have been brought to life in certain different entertainment packages, I guess. We all love the Masters of the Universe stuff. That kind of thing, whether it just be by scale or inspiration, is certainly going to probably see more moving forward, but keep it in scale with the rest of the kaiju stuff. Um, but I would say that never say never, because ideas will sometimes just come to us, and then a few weeks later, something is just done. So I would say we're leaning more into the folklore and mythology stuff the most than Never Ending Story, because we have the license. But beyond that, sky is the limit. Sky is the limit.
Awesome. So I don't know if you're big on Power Rangers or not, but I can I make a suggestion?
Of course.
Yes, I personally would like to see something Power Rangers inspired. Like,
Okay.
for example, you can do like a Goldar Predator fusion or like a Lord Zed Raptor or something. I think that would be pretty cool.
A Lord Zed Raptor would be really awesome. I could see that. It would be very cool. I was not a huge Power Rangers fan when it came out, because for me, I was a Ninja Turtles guy, and the Power Rangers coming in and like, who are these guys? This is just a rip off of Turtles, and not knowing the history at the time. As soon as I figured that out, I go, oh, this makes perfect sense. This is cool. And then when I saw the most recent Power Rangers film that they put out, and seeing the treatment of those characters in that way, I really enjoyed it. And some of the fan stuff that has been put out is really cool too. So I've come to appreciate it, but it's not something that I think about too often. But every time I go back and look at clips from the show, there's a lot of great kaiju stuff. Like some of the wacky kaiju costumes they'd come up with, that they're kind of chintzy in the TV show, but you could take those base concepts and really ramp them up to where it's something scary. It's kind of like what we're doing with Kraken, where the original Kraken that most people became familiar with in the original Clash of the Titans film essentially looks like an ape with scales and gills and extra arms, which is not that imposing. We wanted to get away from that, but still nod to it a little bit. So when we're going into something like, if we were to adapt a Power Rangers kaiju, we would want to make them very imposing, very scary, but still very recognizable as to where the inspiration came from. I think it's a great idea.
All right, yeah, so take notes, and I'll take my cut later. No, I'm joking.
No, and in all honesty, it was your idea, so we'd probably hook you up with a couple. So don't worry
Okay.
about that.
All right, well, we'll talk. We'll talk. And
Okay.
so just to throw a few more ideas at you out there, maybe some uh kaiju from the Godzilla franchise that don't get enough love. Maybe would you consider maybe doing something with those?
I really want to figure out a way to do an Anguirus. I am in love with Anguirus. And if you don't like Anguirus, chat, we can't be friends. Okay.
Yeah, you're
He's,
canceled if you don't like Angerus.
that's right. He's my snuggle bear. That little that
Yes,
little meow thing is. "Ow!" I think that's the cutest sound in the world.
he's a good
I
boy.
think it's what highly underrated character in the franchise. Does not get enough love. Um, but I think the challenge with a toy based on him is that, without just having a separate piece, how do you then emulate him rolling up into the ball of spikes and bouncing around? So from a mechanic standpoint, it's something that would be very difficult. That's why I haven't really brought it to Marcos yet, because I really don't want to see the stress lines on his face form the way they sometimes do. I'd like to keep him happy, but someday I think we'll do that. I really want to do something with Madra. We've already talked about a Queen Ghidorah, which would
Ooh.
be a King Ghidorah buck and body, with the two side heads being the dragon, but the center is a Queen alien head. Um, that's already in the very early design phase in terms of concepts and stuff. Um, and that will be available in a variety of colors and stuff. So that's already coming. And we have some other mashups that we're definitely looking to do. We have some of the eggs that we have. They have a Build-A-Figure inside, and the Predator riders are the same size as the ones in the big riders that are there, the Xenosaurus with Predator rider. So
Mhm.
those are big scale, but the rider itself is the same scale in the mini ones, and the mini ones are like raptor sized. I would like to see more raptor esque hybrids in addition to these large mounts. I don't know where we're going to go with that. Maybe mixing that in with, say, who would be a good match for that? Because if you get too close to another dinosaur, as with some of the Monster Island, monsters, you wouldn't be able to really tell. It would just look a weird raptor. You don't want to do that. Maybe just giving raptors wings. I don't know. We have lots of different things that we could do, and it seems like the crazier my ideas get, the more Marcos is excited by it. So we just keep throwing them, and we've thrown so many at him, I forget sometimes some of the stuff we were already talking about doing. Because he'll bring it up and be like, "Oh yeah, we did talk about that, didn't we?" But by far, the Queen Ghidorah is probably the one I'm most excited for, where it still stays within this kind of wheelhouse. And every time I mention it to somebody, they're like, "Really? You're going to do that?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course we are. You kidding me? Yeah, why wouldn't
Yeah, and if you want to keep with the alien theme, like the earlier form of Destroya would fit in very well with that. So if you want to do something with
you?"
that,
Yeah,
that can also be really cool.
yeah. And I can also see. Oh, his name escapes me. King Caesar. So like King Caesar with some predator stuff in there, or just a bit hairier, like almost keeping the mammals with predators and then everything else going that way. But if you're a troop builder, that means that your predator guys are almost always going to be outnumbered in a big bad way. But screw them, I'm more of an alien person anyway. So
Fair enough. uh, where's Gojitron? Hello,
yeah,
Gojitron.
that's Bill from Weird Fantastic Toy Adventures, was an amazing channel. And
Oh,
Gojatron is a close friend of the channel as well, who does a really good toy review, and he knows more about Godzilla than anyone I've ever met. His knowledge is exhaustive.
all right. Space Xeno.
So, like a space Godzilla xenomorph, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
I would, because there's more than just the base xenomorph. You can look at, say, for example, in Alien Resurrection, which, although it's not a great movie, it introduced the idea of xenomorphs that are very adept at swimming. So you could have different aspects of those. So you have kind of like more of a, instead of fins, go with a wing style. You could probably get away with the more dog-like design from Alien 3 and trying to mess around, because the idea is always to iterate on it in some way where you're not just copying your own ideas over and over again. But a space Xeno kaiju would be cool. I know that I would want to experiment, because I've always felt that the space Godzilla design is a little too chunky. I feel like he needs to be a bit more lean, needs to be more flexible, because otherwise they're just kind of two dude bros that, the difference between the two of them is that they both skip leg day, but they sure do like to eat. That's why they got those badonkadonks. One's got a badonkadonk, the one's got a space badonkadonk. And
Space Dunk.
chunky boys. And I always felt like the Space Godzilla design aesthetically was cool, but if you could somehow make him more slender and more on the move, it would be fun. So a direct mix with that and a xenomorph more akin to like the Alien 3, which was like a distance runner, would be kind of interesting to try and figure out how that could function. Uh, so I like the idea, Gojira 851. It's a cool idea. I'm already like, all right, how can we actually make this something that's a bit more distinct?
Yeah, I assume, I'm guessing that's one of the challenges that you come across when making these toys. It's like, how can I get these cool designs to work? Like it sounds good in my head, but in
Right.
practice, not really. Yeah.
Because otherwise, all you're doing is like swapping parts on existing properties, and that's not really fun. We like to really blend things together. And again, that's more of a Marcos thing than me, as far as he's the one that makes it happen. I'll walk him. He'll show me something. I'll say, "Can we try this? Can we streamline this? I'm thinking this aesthetic," and then he runs with it, and it always ends up better than what's in my head. So I just try to give him as many specific ideas as I can, and then wait to see what happens. Um, so, and a lot of times the challenge is knowing when to stop. Just like with any piece of art, whether it's content or a drawing, a toy, anything. These things are never finished. You just stop working on them. That's what this always is. You're never 100% done. There's always one more thing you can do, and that is a frustrating prospect sometimes because like you want to just keep chipping away at it.
Yeah, I think a lot of creatives face that problem. Like, you work on something and you just want to keep going at it. Like, oh wait, let me let's tweak this little thing, then tweak this one little thing, and then like. But if you keep tweaking, it's never going to get done. So you gotta, know
Right.
when to stop.
Exactly.
Yeah. Our friend Doomzilla. Hello, Doomzilla. In Space Godzilla's defense, despite the bulk he makes up with his massive physics, wow, I can't read, psychic abilities to full advantage, looks can be very deceiving.
I agree with that, but I do think because those psychic abilities are there, and there is a like an allure and a vibe to the like what's going on underneath that body. I do think that changing the aesthetic to be sleeker leaned into the psychic and psionic stuff, because he doesn't have to be a big bulky creature to effectively use those powers. Why couldn't he be something a bit leaner and faster? So it's not. I'm not saying it's a criticism of the original design because I do think it's great. But if I were going to ask Marcos to tackle it, I'd like let's see what we can do with that and try to get a little bit of both worlds. So please, no shade at Space Godzilla or any other kaiju that you're into. I promise you, they're all great. If you like it, it's great.
They're all fantastic.
It's a true story.
So you mentioned you like the Godzilla Final Wars design. So
Hmm. Yeah,
I'm wondering if you can like kind of mix that with the Space Godzilla design, because you mentioned you want him to be sleeker and slimmer, and the Final Wars design is very much what you're describing.
yeah,
So maybe you can make that work.
yeah. I
Possibly.
think that actually has a lot of merit to it, and because I like the way that the on the Final Wars Godzilla, how the neck tapers a lot more, whereas with many of the other designs, especially the legendary version, it just his head's just kind of on him, which is cool. It makes him look bulky and thick, which is cool. Thick boys are great. But with Final Wars, he's got a very articulate neck and he can do all this quick movement. His arms are a bit longer and more effectual. So he's getting in all of these very different fights with very different scenarios, and his body seems more prepared for that. Um, but I could definitely see that translating to a Space Godzilla redesign. Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, artists in the chat or who are watching this in the future, please, draw that up for us. Final Wars Godzilla. That kind of looks like Space Godzilla. You know what I mean? Okay.
I know some I know some people. I
You know
might be
some
able
people.
to make that
Yeah.
happen.
All
Oh
righty.
yeah.
All right. Gojira 851 has an idea: Queen alien body, crown of crystals, crystal stinger, and a blend of the blue seal paint job and the reds and such.
Hmm. That's very interesting. So when you say crown of crystals, you're saying literally crystals going around the head. So it's you got a alien queen with actual crystals on an actual crown. I definitely see the paint scheme you're going for there. The problem with an alien queen body tends to be in every uh, iteration I've seen sculpture wise. It's very hard to get those things to balance properly without forcing yourself to use the tail. Because if you remember the original Jim Cameron design of that queen, Stan Winston, and together, the legs are very spindly. There's only two of them. So I would again, it's not that I don't like the aesthetic. I just worry about the mechanics, but it is a cool sounding idea aesthetically. It's very cool.
Indeed. And Weird Fantastic Toy Adventures, who is a new subscriber, thank you very much. Resurrection Toys also has this very unique Mexican bootleg aesthetic.
And he would know, as he is one of our brand ambassadors.
Oh,
So he gets to play with all the stuff before almost anyone else does. And it really does. If you've ever looked at a Mexican toy, ever in your life, even on the internet, and you look at our stuff, you can tell it's Mexican in nature. It just has that vibe to it. At least I think it does. Now, out of context, when we have a lot of people that will get them and then photograph them in concert with other toy lines. So my one buddy Jim Largo, he photographs his. He has a whole bunch of troops of Xenazillas, and he photographs those with 6-inch scale Action Force figures. So these military guys pointing guns at these kaiju that are now like raptor sized. It's really interesting to see. But in that context, they don't necessarily scream Mexico to me. But when you see them just kind of on their own in their own environment, you're like, oh yeah, it's totally Mexican. But I like that kind of chameleonic nature of the aesthetic. At least, again, that's how I feel.
Mm-hmm. James Salzberg says, would a blend of Bolton some kind of black bear or polar bear interest anyone?
That'd be interesting. That'd be very interesting. Um, Get back to me on that, Jimmy. Jimmy and I know each other. Yeah, like talk to me more about that, because I'm all about bears, man. I love bears, and anytime I can convince someone to make a giant bear figure with other aesthetic stuff, I'd be down. Like I once said, like, what if we did a polar bear and just put a predator face on it? And then Marcos went, it's too much like Predacon. I'm like, well, I want a polar bear. He's like, well, maybe we can just make a polar bear. I'm like, well, maybe. And those are the
Just
kind
make
of
it work,
arguments we
man.
have. Yeah, just make me a dang polar bear, dude. How hard is it?
You can just make a polar bear. Kaiju.
Yeah.
That's all you
But it would
want.
be weird among all these fantastical creatures, and you just have polar bear. It would just be kind of, you know.
All right. And Jim, I have faith that Marcos will be able to make any of these ideas work, and I would like to see them come to life as well.
I would as well. I think it would be very cool. The thing that I have to constantly remind myself and other people is I have one sculptor, okay, and he also does all of our custom painting. So if I were to go out and have us make every single figure idea we've had in the last 2 months, you would not, like, we wouldn't be getting to the stuff we're talking about today until like 3 years from now. It takes a long time. I'm not saying I don't want to do them, and we're eventually going to get more sculptors, but right now, when you give these cool ideas and I say I like that does not, I'm not patronizing you, I promise. It's just we have such a backlog of things we're already trying to make, and I know he can make a lot of this cool stuff happen for everybody. I just don't want to make promises that we can't keep in a reasonable space of time. I don't want Kim, for example, to have a full head of gray hair and wrinkles and going, did you ever get around to that Space Godzilla, Jimmy? And then my urn just kind of shakes a little bit when that happens. I don't want that.
It'll be in your will. Like, here's a list of all the unfinished designs that we didn't get to do. Carry
Like
on.
we commit like our entire lineage for the next 3 generations to finish these ideas that we came up with in fall of 2022. Like, we're still catching up, and
There's like a 10-year wait list for all the cool ideas that are going to come up from here to now, from here to later.
I mean, given the breadth and scope of what we're trying to do with the stuff we've committed to already, and this is a very gross thing to say, but it really, how quickly we can do this stuff depends upon how many toys people buy. That's the bottom line, because when Marcos is not doing our stuff and he's not making money off of the toy sales, he has to take contract work, which takes time away from sculpting these other things. And a week here, a week there can really add up over the course of a year when you're trying to get stuff done. So if you like what we're doing and you want to see more of it, buy it. And many people in the chat are customers, and I'm very pleased that they've done what they have. But new people, if you like it, please support it. That is how this continues to go.
Yes, and again, the Resurrection Toy Shop is linked down below in the description, so please go buy some awesome toys for your collection.
That's a very good plug. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. That's what I do. That's why I'm here. So what other challenges have you faced? I know you mentioned a few already, but are there any other challenges that you haven't mentioned yet?
The biggest challenge by far, and anyone who's been following us since from the beginning will tell you that this is certainly what we bring up the most, is trying to figure out the logistics of international shipping where we just kind of have it down to a science where we know how it's going to work, but also incorporating that into a shipping cost that's reasonable for everybody. Because one of the things that I was my um, tenants when I took this over, I said the one thing I absolutely want to do is have a flat rate international shipping that would cover everybody, where it would just even out. And we do have that. We have a flat 35 international shipping, no matter how much you buy, and we have free shipping threshold as well. And no matter where you live, no matter how much you buy, you're good to go. And anyone who's a serious collector, especially of things that are import, they will tell you that that's not a bad price most of the time. Um, but to get to that place where we knew what that number was, where we weren't going to be absolutely killing ourselves, took a lot of orders to figure out, and we kind of lost a lot of momentum and frankly money to make that happen because I was so scared to put the shipping rate where it is that I lowballed it so badly, really screwed us up in the beginning. But we're okay now, very much in line with everything. And also another one that's a big challenge is managing our internal expectations versus what people that are buying's expectations are. We often find that we're much harder on ourselves than the buying public is. And I think it comes from the fact that we all do love and collect toys, and we have criticisms of the toys that we buy and the way companies do things, and we never want to be in that position because we really do want to bring the best possible product we can without losing the essence of what a bootleg toy is to market. And so far, I think we've managed to do that. Um, but there's always going to be new things on the horizon, new challenges to hurdle, and I'm confident that we will make it through. But by far, the logistics end of it has been the biggest thing.
Yes, and our friend Michael Hamilton says $35 is incredibly reasonable, and I'll take his word for it because he's quite the collector. So I think you're doing a good thing here.
My heart, thank you, sir.
Yes.
I quite literally lost sleep over it because I just did not want to throw things on the site and then people not want it because they thought the shipping was inexorable or something like that. But that reaction tends to be the norm. Our absent friend Gojatron was the first one to say, dude, no, that's very reasonable. Don't worry about it. Um, so I'm very happy that we've gotten to that number where it's tenable, right? And other certain things like our order of operations has changed because we don't when we get an order, we don't just immediately make it and ship it. We do things in waves, usually a week to 2 weeks, and we get a nice bulk. And it seems like okay, here's where we're at. We do a cutoff, do a bulk order on the figures through our manufacturing partners, take a chunk of the money that is for shipping, put it into the hopper for the shipping partner. Just kind of we have a it's a lot more organized than it was even 6 weeks ago, and I'm very happy about that. And now because we've set that solid shipping price, it's much easier to go this much, this much, this much, this much, put it here, and it's done. A lot less stress for me, less gray hairs in the beard. Everyone wins.
Everyone's happy. Good times to be had by all.
Mm-hmm.
That's
At least
awesome.
potentially.
Potentially, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you never know. You can get some unexpected, unpleasant surprises, but let's hope for
True.
good stuff. All right, yeah. So, what would you say is your ultimate goal for Resurrection Toys?
Uh, Ultimate goal for Resurrection Toys really is twofold. I want to make sure that Marcos is fully supported as an artist financially and creatively, to where all he ever has to do to earn his living and be fulfilled is to do the toys he wants to make and not ever have to make someone else's design again. And that's what we're working towards. Every time we get a wave of orders, I smile goes across my face. I'm like, "Here's your money," and he goes, "Wow, that much?" I'm like, "Yeah, we're doing okay. We're all right." We're not quite there, but we're getting there. And because I know that when he has to work on a contract that he's not into, he really hates it because he knows there's other things he could be working on, and it's very important to him. So it's definitely that to support my whole team, but certainly that's a priority, and also to really provide a legacy. You know, our little tagline is "We bring your imagination back to life." We really want to do that because we want to be able to be something that appeals to adult collectors and children alike. And I know a lot of companies say this, but it's really important to us. That's at the core of what a Mexican bootleg toy is. And so we went to this last convention, and you have kids running up wanting to play with your toys. It was like, oh, okay, whew. All right, so we're doing something right. So to be able to hopefully inspire another generation of people to stick with toys and be into kaiju and spark their imaginations, I would say that is very much a huge goal for us.
That is amazing. So, where can people find, your stuff and, keep up with, productions and stuff and like keep
Sure.
up with you and all that fun stuff before we head out of here for
Uh,
tonight? Or
Absolutely.
hungry
So you
stuff.
can find us at Resurrection Toy on all your social media: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We also have a YouTube channel, which is at Resurrection Toys. And we have a Twitch account, which we do exclusive streams on to just be a lot looser, and we can do custom paint stuff. And we'll be having Marcos on there doing some sculpting, which is Resurrection Toys over there as well. We just hit affiliate there, so we will be
Ooh, congrats.
monetizing soon. So it'll be a very easy way for people to passively support what we're doing without having to buy a toy. And it definitely is something where Rolo gets to interact with people more, which he really enjoys. Which, like Bill is saying, um, we're building a legacy for him, and he gets to enjoy it now rather than after the fact, regardless of what one's belief may be of what happens after death. I like that this is something that was originally born of I need this to live after I'm no longer. But it now becomes something that helps keep him going, keeps him energized and engaged. So, and that's also why we have so much social media to make sure that he can see all this stuff. And if you forget all of those different things I just said, all you would have to do is go to resurrectiontoys.com slash whatever where you're trying to get us, slash Twitch, slash YouTube, whatever. It's all hot links to those platforms. And please follow us anywhere that you prefer, or all of them, whatever is your fancy, and we'll do our best to entertain you and answer your questions and hopefully inspire in mutual directions. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have a kind of community hangout on those social media channels live for everyone to enjoy. So we hope to see you next week.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on to this show. It's been a pleasure, and I wish you all the best with all of your endeavors.
Thank
Yeah,
you. I really
thank you so
appreciate
much.
the opportunity, Kim. This was a lot of fun.
This was a lot of fun. And to you watching at home, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to hang out with me and my fantastic guest. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the stream if you had a good time here tonight. And don't forget to tune in next Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Actually, it's going to be 8 p.m. Eastern Time next week because I do have a very special guest who I will announce later on this week. Follow me on Twitter at Kaiju Kim to find out who it is. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you next time. Bye. Thanks for
Cheers, guys.
watching.